In Brazil, President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva inaugurated a power line that will link the Amazonian state of Roraima to the national interconnected system. In Nigeria, West African military leaders agree on a plan for a possible intervention in a year as a deadline nears for the country's junta to restore civilian rule. And at least 11 people were killed and thousands missing after a landslide at a resort town in northwestern Georgia. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the TeleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We'll begin with the news. Stay with us. In Brazil, President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva inaugurated a power line that will link the Amazonian state of Roraima to the national interconnected system. On Friday, the Brazilian president presented a program, Life for All, aimed at reducing the burning of diesel in the region, combining development and preservation of the environment. The decarbonization program for the national interconnected system will also be implemented. The interconnection of the municipalities of Parintis, Aticorata, and Juruti to the national interconnected system of electric power will also be announced. In El Salvador, security forces continue for a third consecutive day operating in an apartment of Cabañas, where they intended to detain alleged members. Human rights organizations denounce that the operations take place within the framework of the implementation of a police and military site in the territory under the exception regime imposed by the government of Nayib Bukele. The population rejects the search operations for resumes gangs members in the rural zones of the department. For their part, members of the police will continue with the development of special operations in the department. Colombia's President Gustavo Petro denounced that demanded that justice be applied impartially in the investigation process for alleged irregularities in his presidential campaign on the coast. The president asserts in a statement that no one can be above the law and that justice must be applied impartially with due process and its guarantees. He also affirmed that it will be up to the judges within their competence to legally defend what corresponds to the process. The president informed that he had granted power to attorney of the judge of the criminal acquisition chamber of the Supreme Court of Justice so that he could represent him. In Ecuador, Miguel Santos Burgos, land director for the municipality of Duran, was murdered after finishing his working day. According to a preliminary report presented by the authorities, the incident occurred near the municipal institution. It was also revealed that the crime was evidences in a video where a group of armed men can be seen on board of a vehicle and later shot in the direction of the car where Burgos was driving. The shots alerted the inhabitants of the community and nearby the shopkeepers while police officers began a chase against the subject. Let's take a very short break, but remember you can now follow us on our TikTok account as TeleSUR English, where you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. Russian and Chinese naval warships conduct a drill to destroy a simulated enemy submarine within the framework the framework of the combined patrol of the Pacific Ocean. During that transit in the southwestern part of the Bering Sea, the sailors conducted an anti-submarine exercise in which they rehearsed the location and destruction of a simulated submarine. On the other hand, the Russian and Chinese militaries improved their tactical maneuvering skills as well as conducted communication, training, helicopter takeoff and landing from the decks of their ships. The Russian government condemned the possible foreign military intervention in the internal affairs of Nigeria. The Foreign Ministry expressed the need to implement mechanisms to organize a national dialogue to reestablish peace and guarantee the rule of law and public order in the African country. Authorities state that the threat to use military forces against Nigeria will not reduce tensions or favor the resolution of the conflict. In Nigeria, West African military leaders agree on a plan for a possible intervention in Nigeria as the deadline nears for the country's junta to restore the civilian rule. The military reached the agreement on the last days of an extraordinary summit meeting of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, held on Friday in Nigeria capital, Abuja, to discuss ways to respond to the crisis. Last Sunday, ECOWAS gave the junta that toppled elected President Mohamed Bazoum in a July 26 coup 1 week to restore him or face a potential loss of the force.
All the elements that would go into any eventual intervention have been worked out here and being refined, including the timing, including the resources needed, and including how and where and when we are going to deploy such a force. We want diplomacy to work, and we want this message clearly transmitted to the leaders of the junta in Niger, that we are giving them every opportunity to reverse what they have done.
The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, announced that world food commodity prices rose in July under the influence of the determination of the Black Sea Grain Export Initiative. According to the UN agency, the World Food Index averaged 123.9 points, up to 1.3% from June. The agency also stressed that the increase was due to a sharp rise in the FAO vegetable oil price index, which rose 12.1% since June after 7 consecutive months of decline. In Honduras, recent rains have left destruction and economic losses in Copanrinas Bird Park. According to the authorities, at least 60 communities were affected after passage of the tropical wave through the region. The Secretary of the Risk Management and National Contingencies issued a yellow alert for the Department of Copan, Santa Barbara, and Ocotepeque. In this context, the authorities continue with the recovery work in the affected areas. A forest fire on the Spanish Mediterranean coast on the border with France was advancing at high speed on Friday night due to strong winds. The blaze has led to the lockdown of a village and a campsite in the area. According to the forest authorities in Catalonia, the area affected by the fire extended over 150 hectares at 1925 hours local time, compared to 50 hectares less than an hour earlier. At least 11 people were killed and thousands missing after a landslide at the resort town in northwestern Georgia. The landslide took place on Thursday in Shelby, a small resort town in Georgia's mountainous northwest, famed for its vast forest and mineral water spring. Prime Minister said that rescuers were on the scene and that he had called in the army to help with search efforts. According to the local authorities, 35 people were still missing, while more than 200 were evacuated from the area. In this context, the president of Georgia declared that it is important to stand together in difficult times.
How to stand together in the face of such tragedies. It is important that we stand together and help people in need to get through this difficult time in their lives.
Let's take our last break, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English, where you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, sub stories, speech broadcasts, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. We'll find a short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. And now we head to southwestern China, where a local football championship that went over the hearts of the entire country in the last weekend. After the TeleSUR chaos took over Chinese social media, hundreds of thousands of tourists began to travel into the small town on weekends to watch matches with teams made up of local workers. Brazilian TVT correspondent in China, Mauro Ramos, attended the final game and will tell us more about it.
Football by China continues to grow. This year, in addition to the fever generated by the arrival of Argentinian idol Lionel Messi for the friendly games against Australia and the participation of the national team in the Women's World Cup, a phenomenon piqued the interest of Chinese people throughout the country. A tournament in a small country called Rongjiang. In Guangxi province in southwestern China, the championship is called Chunshao and can be translated as the Village Super League. The final took place last weekend. 20 teams from various places and with players from different ethnic groups participating in it. The players are all workers from the region, peasants, students, drivers, and local business people aged between 15 and 50 years. As a peasant, I have to go to the field in the morning. Nowadays, it is not as backward as it used to be, so we can use modern tools. Every morning I go to the field to see if there are any problems with the crops. I go early in the morning and come back at noon. I take a 2 hours break at noon and then go back to the field to see my crops. This was the first time that Chunshao took on national proportions. The small county of Rongjiang, with a population of 385,000, received around 1 million tourists after the games trended on Chinese social media. On Saturday, July 29, more than 150,000 people traveled to Rongjiang to watch the final. Chunshao, the Super Village League, is first and foremost a showcase for our collective confidence and Rongjiang's culinary delights. It also serves as a way to bond through football culture, showcasing our local cuisine and the intangible cultural heritage of our ethnic minorities. Fundamentally, it has greatly contributed to Rongjiang's economic growth and ultimately significantly increased the cohesion of our community. Wu Shaishi is a peasant from Shongshen, the village that came runner-up throughout the Chunshao. She sold juices and fruit that she grew herself on her land.
Today is Song Chao's final. At first, we really didn't imagine that Song Chao would become so popular. We really welcome friends from different places to come to our Song Chao. They have helped us a lot in business, bringing great benefits to Rongjiang in Guizhou. We're excited and happy to meet all of you, our friends from the outside. And, well, I really don't know what to say. I'm very excited right now.
In the first month of the championship, tourism in Rongjiang generated more than 1.2 billion yuan, about 167 million US dollars. The neighbors organized the entire event, the teams, the calendar of the game, the rules and the prizes, which were animals raised by the peasants of the region themselves. The winning team, Shenyang, won a bull, the runners-up, Shongshen, won goats, those from Shamba came third and won the prizes of pig, and those in fourth place, the Xinshong, got geese. The judges, the lines people, and the best players also took home chickens. The initiative is part of a larger project that is rural revitalization. As part of the policy, the central government set a goal of creating more than 100 rural sport events by 2035. Rural revitalization in China is the country's strategy to consolidate the achievement of poverty reduction and the elimination of extreme poverty in recent years. It is also part of the Chinese modernization project.
Kunchao has indeed stimulated our local economy. For example, many local villagers would usually go outside their hometowns for work. But thanks to this platform and these activities, many people can come back to work in their hometowns. As a result, the local economies get boosted, and many people are also happy that they don't have to leave their hometown to find work.
Rongjiang was one of the last 9 counties in China to be removed from the country's poverty list in 2020. One of the guiding elements of the campaign that lifted 100 million people out of poverty in a year was how to ensure people stay out of poverty. The promotion of sports and rural tourism is one of the responses that China have been implementing. The local football association, as well as the Dong and Miao Ethnic Studies Association, organize the games. The government provides funds for the necessary infrastructure, while we are responsible for organizing the games. Regarding financing, we reject all forms of commercialization, sponsorship, and profit. As during all the weekends in which it was played, the final of the Shunshao featured cultural activities representing the ethnic diversity of the region. One of these presentations included 600 women of different communities singing on the football pitch. More than 83% of Rongjiang's population belonged to 15 ethnic groups, such as the Miao and Dong. The final match was practically settled. Shenzhen was winning 2-1, when a few minutes before the end of the match, Zhejiang teams scored the draw goal. The match went directly to penalties, and finally the resident of Zhejiang took home the winning title. It has been a long and difficult day, but we managed to win the championship. I am proud, happy, and delighted from being a peasant to winning the Shunshao Championship. I am extremely happy.
Desde China, Mauro Ramos de la TVT para TeleSUR.
We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also see us on our socials. We're on Facebook and Twitter and on Instagram as well. For TeleSUR English and from the South, I'm Ana Marrero. Thank you for watching.